Here's the truth. Our body language is more honest than words. Did you know that 55% of our communication between humans is nonverbal body language? I didn't know this before I was reading this book right here. And while reading it, I realized that this is actually such valuable information for an interview process and might very well make the difference between getting that job or getting a rejection. So today, let me tell you 10 things I learned about body language and how we can use it to win over interviewers. Now, let me just say this before we dive in. In the book, they mention several times that you cannot read body language signals in isolation, but they need to be read in a context and also in context with other body signals. And that being said, let's see what kind of signals we can be looking out for. Tip number 1, the smile. The interview starts the second you lock eyes with the other person in the hallway or on screen. I think we all subconsciously know this, but if you offer a warm and genuine smile, you trigger mirror neurons in the other person's brain, which makes them want to smile back at you and subconsciously feel this positivity that you're projecting. And keep that in mind. A genuine, real smile involves the wrinkles or the eyes to crinkle. So basically, if you see the other person only smiling with their mouth but not with their eyes, it might be a sign that it's not a genuine smile. And reversely, if you're doing this, you're kind of projecting this fake smile that is only smiling on the mouth but not really with the eyes. The other person will also subconsciously know that something is off. Tip number 2, the level handshake. For an in-person interview, your first physical contact is the handshake. And that is where a lot of candidates already fail immediately. If you're reaching out your hand with the palm facing up, you come across as submissive. Whereas if you face it down, you come across as dominant. You don't really want either. If you're reaching out, the ideal situation in this interview scenario is that you have a level, so an almost vertical handshake, which symbolizes that you're on one eye level and this is not a one-sided interview, but it's a mutual exchange. But here's the thing, even a perfectly vertical handshake can be completely ruined by the wet fish grip. So if you know that you tend to sweat on your palms, especially if you're nervous, make sure to keep a tissue in your pocket and dry them just before you get to that handshake situation. A dry, firm grip signals a calm nervous system and it shows the interviewer that you are in control of your emotions. They mention in this book that the majority of men have had a situation with a woman where the whole handshake situation was kind of fumbled. And I have a personal anecdote for that as well, not necessarily from an interview point of view, but from a networking encounter. So I recently met up with someone that I had previously only seen via Zoom, and we met up for the first time in a cafe, and we used to work together from 2 different companies, but cooperating on a project. And I didn't really know beforehand, should we give each other a hug? Should we just reach out for the hand? And I wanted to go for the handshake. But I kind of didn't fully go for it. I just started doing it. And then he was like, let's just hug. And that was also totally fine to hug. It just created a little bit of awkwardness in that moment. And in that sense, you should make sure that if you're going for the handshake, go for it fully. Don't just put it here, put it out there. Do the level vertical handshake and stay consistent with it. Tip number 3, the seating angle. This is also more for in-person interviews, but when you walk into the office and you see that you're sitting directly across from the interviewer, so it's very confrontational, interrogational setup, you should try and change that situation. So try and angle your chair at a 45-degree angle so that you don't sit fully like this anymore, but you're sitting more like this and it seems like it's more of a collaborative approach and a collaborative conversation rather than a one-on-one interrogation. It shifts the psychology of the room from you versus me to we're solving a problem together. Tip number 4, the water glass. Now you've sat down, the interviewer offers you water, you take it, and you place it right in front of you. Don't. According to the book, we place objects in front of us when we feel threatened to basically protect our vital organs and to build a little bit of a barrier, so you don't seem open if you place it right there as a little wall in front of you. Instead, move it slightly to the side, keep the area in front of your chest towards them open so that you don't come across as defensive. Tip number 5, the power of open palms. This is a game changer, also for an online interview situation. When you're answering a question, make sure you keep your palms open and visible. Evolutionary, open palms meant I have no weapons. Today it means I'm being 100% truthful. It signals to the interviewer that you have nothing to hide and that you're answering the question in an honest way. And when you show your palms, it actually subconsciously also triggers a reaction in the interviewer to be more truthful with you as well. So you can and should also use this technique when you're asking questions to the interviewer, for example, about their feedback culture or about promotions to be expected. Tip number 6, the anti-crossing rule. We all in some way know not to cross our arms in front of our body in an interview. But do you know why? Even if you're just cold, the recruiter's brain sees crossed arms and thinks, this person is shutting me out. It creates emotional and physical distance and comes across as defensive. Instead, you can have your arms lay loosely on the table or on the armrest, and while you're talking, answering questions or asking questions, you can, as I said before, use open palms to signal truthfulness and openness. Tip number 7, touching your nose or mouth. In the book, they explain that already children, when they tell a lie, they will cover their mouth and basically try not to let those deceitful words slip out of their mouth. Now, as we get older, we don't do it so obviously anymore. We don't fully go and cover our mouth, but instead the hand still does the movement. So we still move our hands towards our mouth or our nose when we're lying. So if they ask you, why did you leave your last job? And here, you don't want to say, because my former boss was horrible. You don't want to badmouth a previous employer. That doesn't leave a good impression on you. But you also don't want to say, they were amazing, and then start rubbing your face or touching your nose and your mouth, because that will come across as deceitful. And you're gonna look like you're hiding something. So keep your hands away from your face. On the other hand, watch the interviewer when you ask them a question. When they're talking about how great the work-life balance is in this job and they keep touching their face, mouth, or nose area, they might be lying too. I recently had an interview where I asked the hiring managers about their feedback culture, and they were talking about how seriously they take it and how important it is for them. And all the while they kept touching their mouth. And I remembered from this book, and I kept thinking to myself, is it? I kind of doubt it. Tip number 8, don't point your fingers. In almost every culture, the pointing finger is subconsciously perceived as aggressive. If you want to emphasize and point, use an open hand. As we discussed earlier, it shows a positive attitude and openness. And they did several experiments in the book where they had one group of people watch a performance where people used the open hands, and then the same performance where people just used pointing fingers. And the results were actually so significant. They showed really clearly that the people had a much more negative attitude towards the performance with the pointing fingers versus with the open palms. Tip number 9, read the room. If you have been asked a question and you see the interviewer kind of sit like this and then also like this, you might be thinking to yourself that they're just critically thinking, and they might be, but it can also very well be a signal of them not agreeing with what you're actually saying. And in order to figure out how to correctly interpret that signal, you should also look at other signals. So for example, if they do this gesture, like this, and then also kind of maybe frown a little, and at the same time, maybe they cross their legs, which you can mostly only see when you're there in person. But all of these signals together, they can definitely show you that that person is not really agreeing with what you're saying. If you notice this, take a break, pivot, and either direct the conversation in a different direction or even throw the ball back at them and ask them a question as to get them out of this "I don't agree with you" body language and kind of mode. Tip number 10, the elbow touch. Finally, how you leave is just as important as how you enter. When you're about to give the final handshake, try and touch the other person, the interviewer, the recruiting manager, very lightly and only for maximum 3 seconds on their elbow, because the elbow is an appropriate place to touch another person. It's not too intimate, but it actually will spike likability. They have done several experiments and studies in this book that have discovered that this little bit of elbow touch is definitely bringing a more positive attitude towards people if they're doing it. It makes you feel like a friend rather than a stranger or a candidate. So keep in mind to smile when you enter, try and have a level handshake when you're shaking hands, have your seating angle not directly confrontational but at a slight angle, so it's more of a collaborative approach. Don't place the water glass right in front of you, but place it to the side so that the area in front of you is open. Talk with open arms to come across as positive. Do not cross your arms or your legs because it will come across as defensive. Look out for people touching their mouth or nose area when they're telling you a story to kind of see if they're deceitful. And don't use pointing fingers. Read the room when someone is leaning like this and maybe pivot the conversation. And finally, give a quick light elbow touch on the final handshake to spike likability. Now, let me know in the comments what you thought about it and if you've ever seen any of these signals in your previous interviews. And thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.